All right, we are live on X with our first interview for the Bitcoin Daily. Mars, he's one of our contributors, our latest addition to the Bitcoin Daily team, and he graciously agreed to help us launch our interview with Bitcoin Daily. We'll be interviewing all the hosts of the Bitcoin Daily, along with some of our regular speakers, just so that we can have a video content library. So we'll be able to put this on YouTube. We'll be able to share it. And I think our general theme or goal with these interviews is to really interview not necessarily the big, massive personalities that we see interviewed over and over and over again, but really the guys that are kind of the next level lieutenants that are really doing a bunch of great work in the Bitcoin community and really contributing, I think, at a high level, but really just don't, in my opinion, get enough airtime and don't get enough exposure. And so really appreciate all your contributions so far, Mars. But if you'd like to maybe tell us a little bit about your background, where you came from, and we'll kind of start there. And we'll move into what you're working on now, and then what the future looks like for you.
Yeah, we're beta testing this, aren't we? I'm the one that's coming on that's going to make all the mistakes, all the techie mistakes and whatnot. So I appreciate you having me on to iron out the kinks, to be the guy that does that sort of thing. So, but yeah, I mean, how far back do you want to go?
Well, maybe just where you came from, maybe your educational background. I don't mind going back to birth.
Sure. No, that sounds good. Yeah. So I live in St. Paul. I'm a Minnesota boy. I was raised in Minnesota. Went to public schools here. Did sports and all that sort of stuff. I was a track and field guy like you, so I'm sure we can talk about track. I was a middle distance. Yeah, that's right, middle distance. So I did 400, 800, and the mile. Those were my sweet spots. What's that?
What was your best mile time?
I ran a 4:11. I was primarily a half miler. Yeah. Once in a long time ago. Now I vape too much and I'm addicted to nicotine, so those days are long gone. But yeah, I was a miler. What'd you do, javelin?
I did javelin and discus. I got a scholarship for that, but I ended up taking the cheerleading scholarship, which was bigger. But I loved track, and I actually ran cross country for a little while to stay in shape. But man, a 4:11 mile is blazing fast. That's crazy that you got your body up to that speed.
Oh, well, I appreciate that. It's all pain, that's what those sorts of sports are, especially during the training. It's about who can kind of commit to the program and stick with it, consistency, remaining injury free, all that good sort of stuff. So yeah, I went on to compete in college as well. I was fortunate enough to get accepted to Princeton, with help of running, of course. So I went on and I ran cross country for them as well, but that was more for me to stay in shape. I was back of the pack sort of guy at those distances, like 8K and 10K. Whew, that was painful. And it was humbling as well, right? Like being not competitive, but being forced to do it. It was a humbling experience for sure, but it got me ready for indoor and outdoor season in track and field, where actually my primary race was the half mile and quarter mile, but mile, I went up to the mile as well. So in the springtime, we did more of the sprints and the weight training and all that. So I did that for 4 years. I studied economics and finance there. I got in at Princeton, right? It was probably the year after Ben Bernanke left the school. He was the head of the econ department to chair the Fed. So I was there in the late, it was like 2005 to 2009 range. And it was an interesting time to be there, especially because of the great financial crisis and the ties to Ben Bernanke. And at the time, I was a big supporter of that type of school of thought. I was indoctrinated to a degree to those monetary policies and the Keynesian economics and the economic theory and the public theory around it all. And that's where the academics were at. What
year was this, you said?
So I came in the fall of 2005 to Princeton. So I was there from 2005 to 2009.
Wow. So you were
And
there right during the housing crisis, and all that big mess was just,
yeah,
it was, yeah. So you were in the 2008 stuff. What was the atmosphere like in all
it
that
was
mess?
crazy. It was even crazy at at the school level because they have these. So obviously, Princeton is a big draw to Wall Street, and at the time, so I saw, especially with being in track and field, I had friends that were seniors when I was a freshman, and I had friends across every class, right? And the first couple of years I was there, like 2005 to 2007, my buddies were getting every sort of job on Wall Street. I think the statistic is more or less correct because I don't remember it specifically, but like J.P. Morgan in 2007 hired 37 people out of Princeton for their investment banking firm on Wall Street, and by 2009 it was two. So it just the bottom fell out, and there was no job market for anyone, and I had not yet graduated, right? Because I was graduating in 2009. It was scary at the time, but what that meant was, for me personally, I ultimately decided there was actually a healthier job market back in Minneapolis with a fairly strong banking industry there, a Midwestern banking industry. So I came back home, returned to the Midwest after graduating. I did apply to a couple jobs on Wall Street, but I didn't get them. I didn't pursue anything more seriously than that, other than deciding to come home to Minnesota after that.
Yeah. Now so. What was the banking environment like in Minnesota then, or Minneapolis? You said, right?
Yeah, so I ended up working for U.S. Bank Corp, which is a top five commercial bank, headquartered in Minneapolis here. And U.S. Bank Corp, and that's by asset size. The interesting thing about U.S. Bank Corp is they didn't and don't and continue to do not have a large Wall Street presence. They're what we called ourselves a traditional bank, right? So they weren't in the game of securities, derivatives, complex finance out in Wall Street. They offered banking services that are much more Main Street oriented, right? Loans in particular. When I did my job interview at U.S. Bank, I was asked, how does a bank make money? And I, of course, answered that only somewhat correct. And the person who was interviewing me then educated me to the correct answer, and that's a traditional bank makes money one of two ways, and that's through fee income and interest income. Fee income being like, the small charge you are that they administer when you withdraw money from an ATM account, or if you do wealth management services for them, they'll take a fee, or any of the other fees that they charge for the banking services. Then they have interest income, right? Interest income is all around making loans, issuing debt, credit, all that good stuff. And so that's what traditional banking is, which is different than what Wall Streets are doing, as they built up complex financial instruments like derivatives and all that good stuff. So I came back to Minneapolis and focused on traditional banking. I worked for their corporate treasury department for a while. I was interest rate forecasting for a couple of years, and then I ended up getting my Series 7, and I became a fixed income broker for them, selling fixed income deposits, selling commercial paper to large institutional investors, municipalities, public entities, any of the big institutional clients that wanted to buy U.S. Treasuries, repos. I sold them money market funds, which is a cash-based interest instrument where, if Apple has 200 billion in cash, what they're doing with that is they're parking that in these sorts of instruments that I sold them. So it was a desk that focused on cash management, treasury management for corporations, and I did that for a few years, and then eventually got out of the game and did something totally different because of a few interesting life events. But yeah, that's where I was at after 2010. Um, and with regard to like the actual market, The bank itself that I worked for was relatively insulated from the downturn on from the great financial crisis. Now they
How
did
so?
receive, what's that?
How were they relatively insulated? Just because they were more Main Street, not affected by all the Wall Street turmoil?
Yeah, in particular, they weren't in the mortgage-backed security game. They weren't managing large portfolios like that. So when the mortgage-backed market collapsed, we were just not in a position to be as affected of it. We did receive TARP money though. As a top five commercial bank, the U.S. Bank Corp was actually forced they forced all the big banks to take it back then. They wanted every big bank to take it so that no bank was singled out by taking it. So they were involved, U.S. Bank Corp, with the bailout, but not by choice. They weren't laying anyone off. They didn't cut any salaries to get by at that time. So I came in at an interesting, kind of at the bottom of the banking market, you know.
Right, right. So, in your opinion, the what would be your new answer today to that? I'm curious to that interview question of how banks make money. Is it still the same now that you've kind of learned about Bitcoin? I don't want to get too far ahead of your story, but I'm curious as to how you would answer that question today, knowing all you know about Bitcoin.
Yeah, well, banks are in an interesting spot with the zero interest rate market, right? And so I would say that generally speaking, that's how they make money today. But from someone who is in the industry, for personal goals, career goals, it was a terrible time to get in because when I transitioned to fixed income, selling fixed like treasuries and commercial paper and all that good stuff, I was in a brokerage business, which meant I made a fee off of every transaction, but that fee was a spread above the interest rate. And when interest rates go to zero, there's no room for a spread. So
Right.
the team that I joined, yeah, the team that I joined, these guys were making three times what they were just a few years ago. So they went from making a certain level, and their salary dropped down to a third of it what it was once interest rates went to zero. And I eventually kind of saw the writing on the wall with this zero interest rate market that they were perpetuating. And then they started engaging in quantitative easing, QE2, QE3, Operation Twist. I was at the bank for all that sort of stuff. And I saw the writing on the wall and was like, I think I got to do something different. There might not be a future here for me if interest rates go back up. And I think I kind of called it correctly, but I also left for very personal reasons at the same time because my life was changing in dramatic ways, and we can get into that if you want to as well. But yeah,
Sure.
that's where I was at back then.
How long did you stay at that bank? And then what caused the transition for you? And then kind of
Five
what did
years.
you? So you were in there right after college, graduated what, 09, and then were there
Mhm.
till 2014, something like that.
Yeah, that's
2014.
correct. Yeah. And at the time, while I was waiting for interest rates to recover, I was also struggling with personal issues. I'm someone who's in recovery from addiction, and Princeton was great. I learned a lot of. I I have a lot of great friends that came out of Princeton. I learned a lot from the academic side, but I also learned how to drink, Craig, and
Yeah.
that turned into a big problem for me when I got out of college. And
Seems
so
very
in
common.
24, what's that?
I said it seems very college, very common in college to learn how to do those things, and
Right?
they stick with you and haunt you in your adult years if you're not careful.
Well, exactly. And I lived by this mentality, and it was a delusion to myself to some degree, which was work hard, play hard. And I think that that works for a lot of people. It didn't for me because I was able to continue to lie to myself as this addiction kind of spiraled up and out of control, right? Um, and I was fairly successful at maintaining certain order in my life during this period of time. I still had the job. I got married during that time period. I bought a house. I did all the sorts of things that people do. Oh, my monitor just turned on. I guess I'll just leave it. But yeah, so I did all the sorts of things people are still do, but I was drinking all the time, Craig, 24/7.
Wow.
24/7. And
They call
eventually
that
my
a they call that a high functioning alcoholic.
Yeah, until it's not, right? Until
Until
it's
it
not.
works, until it doesn't.
Um,
Right,
so yeah, I was doing that for a while, and then the consequences started to come from my drinking in my personal life,
right.
and I decided to seek help. Did that sort of. I ended up going to treatment and all that good stuff, and it gave me an opportunity to kind of reset my life at that time. I got what they call as a sober job, and that which means getting back to the basics. So I left banking. I became a forklift driver for 2 years, which it's still been my favorite job to this day. I love driving
Oh, yeah.
forklift in a warehouse. Um, and did that for a couple of years, and then eventually transitioned into a sales role for a company where I was driving the forklift, and did that for 5 years or so beyond that. And then the pandemic hit, of course, and a bunch of stuff happened.
That's so interesting. I had a manufacturing company that I started, and I started it kind of under my staircase while I was running another larger company. But there was a time where we did not have a forklift operator, and I said, "Well, I'll figure out how to do it." And I took a course, taught myself, and for maybe 2 months, I was unloading sea cans from China using the forklifts, and it was probably the funnest thing I've ever done in my life. It's like an in-person live video game, and you get so good at it, and you feel like you're accomplishing something. I mean, I can't support, a lot of people on a forklift driver's income, but I had a blast.
No, it
Sometimes I
is
wish I could.
true. It's like Tetris. It's real life,
Yes,
big scale Tetris. And I
yes.
had a couple of mistakes, Craig. Once I got good at the forklift, that's when I became dangerous with it because I kind of settled into a comfort zone. And there's a couple of stories where, I had pallets stacked 25 feet high and down they came, and 200,000 units of whatever we were storing all over the floor. We had to spend all day cleaning it up. It was a disaster, but learned through mistake, I guess. But yeah, I love driving a forklift for sure.
Yeah, I remember probably my hardest thing was when for those of you that don't know, here's a little forklift driving insight. There's one of the first things you learn how to do is to back out of an 18 wheeler on an incline and ramp it up the loading dock and not ram the top of the 18 wheeler with your load coming out. And it
Yes.
takes like 5 or 6 things moving all at perfect timing. And until you get it right, it's a disaster. You literally can't get out. You're kind of stuck inside the 18 wheeler. But then once you do it, it's almost like breathing. It just becomes where the thing's almost like an extension of your body.
Yeah.
You know, can't tell the difference. It's almost like moving your hand when you move the forklift. But it's really cool. It kind of brought me back to my gamer days when I was young, and I used to game a lot. Except it was like being inside the game. So love it.
For sure. Yeah, I also ran into a Sprinter van because I had a big pallet that was 12 feet tall blocking my view, and I wasn't driving in reverse like I should have been. And I went around a corner, and there was a Sprinter van parked at a loading ramp, not at a lift, but at a loading ramp. And I was going outside with it and just right into the back. So it's like, oh, geez, Louise, I did that. But the company I worked for was forgiving. They had
Yeah.
a kind of a long-term view on it that if I'm a good worker and stuff like that, a $2,000 repair to a Sprinter van, I guess might be worth it. So I was appreciative of their flexibility in that instance. But yeah, it's fun. I want to do it again. I want to get back to it. But just now, yeah, we'll see. We'll see, I guess.
So how'd you get into sales from there?
Just in the company that I worked with. Yeah, and
Uh,
it was really more of an inside sales role, Craig. So it was more customer support than anything else. Um, the business that I was in was it was business to business sales, and we had recurring customers, right? So we were selling a product that they needed for their manufacturing purposes. So what it came down to at the end of the day is making sure our current customers are happy and get what they want when they need it and on time and fixing any problems when they come up. And so it's a customer sales role more than anything. And I really enjoyed it. Very phone based, the industry I was in catered heavy to like the egg chem, as we say, agricultural chemical um, folks around Minnesota and North Dakota and Iowa and South Dakota. And these folks like using the phone. They don't like emailing. And so I was on the phone all day getting to talk to people, and I just enjoyed it. It was good stuff.
Yeah, your interpersonal skills go well when you handle phone service and you're talking to people through problems. You learn how to, to just you become quite a linguist and dealing with some people that. Did you ever get the angry customer? Was that
Oh, all
something
the
that
time.
you learned to deal
All
with
the
that?
time. Yeah, it's always the customer that doesn't give any revenue to the company anyways. Our biggest customers were the easiest ones, and it was the
Right.
smallest customers that were the most time consuming, which usually meant that they were grumpy. Grumpy and unsatisfied often. So yeah, that I got used to fairly quickly. You kind of just develop a, I don't want to say tough skin, but you just kind of develop a tolerance for it, I guess.
Right. Yeah, and that is a kind of a rule of life that 20% of your customers will give you 80% of the problems, and I find that in every walk of life that I've whether it's customers
100%.
or employees or anything like that. So, and is that still where you work today, or did you transition out of that, or what's going on now?
So I was working there at the beginning of the year.
Mhm.
I'm taking some time off right now. Just had a kid, so I'm what I call fun employed. Although I think the position is still available to me if I want to go back. We kind of discussed maybe taking 6 or 12 months off, which I'm fortunate enough to be able to do from a financial standpoint. So me and my wife have been just raising our kid, getting back to the basics. I've been getting healthy again. So yeah, focusing on life. It's been really nice.
Yeah, I had a similar about 12 months ago. I semi-retired and helped found this Bitcoin Daily show here, and now I'm kind of getting back into starting up another company, and I'm tired of spending my Bitcoin. I'm actually wanting to make a little more money now, but man, you don't realize until you take a break how much you needed a break,
Oh,
and
for sure.
and so it's been 6 months for you
Yeah,
that you've
yeah.
been.
It was not even. Yeah, I think it was the end of January, um, where I've been at home here about a month after my kid was born, and it's been nice. And you're right, it's allowed me to refocus on Bitcoin and on making memes, and in a sense, I would say reinventing myself to a degree, which I think is kind of comes with the territory the longer that you're in Bitcoin. I've heard other folks talk about this where like their approach on Bitcoin transitions or they decide to look at it a different way or whatever it might be. But for me, with my participation on Twitter, I've just like it's been a really great opportunity to kind of just reset the board. And another thing that's really interesting is, I've been on Twitter since early 2021. I came to Twitter after getting bored of Bitcoin Reddit. I started there. Well, I started in crypto on Reddit. Then I went to Bitcoin Reddit. Then I realized that people are on Twitter, and I was told that there's better conversation there. So I came in 2021 and spent uh, pretty much, most of my time on Spaces when those came out, making memes. But after a while, I stopped talking about Bitcoin altogether. And by end of 2023, it wasn't about Bitcoin for me at all. So this year, I've kind of made this conscious effort to kind of get back to the basics and to kind of ground myself back in Bitcoin a little bit more because it's time to do that for me personally, right? Like there's so much in the space that's Bitcoin that I can learn that I haven't. I know nothing about mining, even some of the security aspects. I try to follow the protocol discussions. There's so much for me to learn that it's been nice to get back to Bitcoin specific discussion as
Right.
opposed to just riling off on a tangent.
So what? Tell me about. Bring me back to your Bitcoin journey as far as how you got into it. What year did you come in, or what? When did you find it interesting? Well, maybe even what attracted to you first to Bitcoin?
So I finally bought Bitcoin in 2017. Um, of course, when I was in the banking industry, we were making fun of Bitcoin. We would have CNBC on all the time, and if they were to talk about Bitcoin, I dismissed it, like most of us do when we first hear Bitcoin. It takes a few touch points, and when it came back in 2017, and it was on that bull run, I ultimately had this realization, like, it's not going away, right? Because I saw the 2013 bull and collapse because of Mount Gox, and I just figured it's just going to be a pet rock at that point. It's just going to be kind of a hobbyist thing. And I was the classic foot I always believed was the government will never allow this. You know, the government will never allow some sort of independent currency. Well, when it came back with its next bull market, I was like, man, this thing's not going away. Government hasn't done anything about it yet, and I want to get in on this price action. That's what like most of us come to make money, right? Come for the money and stay for the money is what they say, I think. But yeah, so I got in 2017 bull late, um, in the fall. I was immediately distracted with shit coins. Um,
Yep.
Focused most of my effort on shit coins. I was an XRP guy, and amongst others, had some ETH, had a shitcoin called Horizon token where I got completely rubbed from. But when then the 2017 bull ended, and we were in that bear market, that's when I really transitioned more to Bitcoin, of course. And then 2020 hit, and to a degree that opened my eyes to the opportunity for Bitcoin and the problems of the world. Sometimes I say it radicalized me to a degree, right? I saw the
Mhm.
shenanigans, and that's when I kind of got more obsessed with Bitcoin, if you might say it that way, and financially put everything I could into it. So yeah, that's where I really got maximalized, was probably 2019, 2020.
Yeah, and I came in as well in 2017, but I really did not um, learn much about Bitcoin till 2023, even though I did
Sure.
hold a decent amount. And I came in same time at the top of that bull market in 2017. But not until recently and here on the show did I really get educated by the speakers that came up and just spoke on the topics that I was curious about. I would throw out the questions, and then guys like you would come up and give the answers. And I guess I got orange pilled live on the show on X Spaces. When did you start to learn about the things like the property rights, the peer to peer, the cold storage? None of this I learned in 2017, 18, 19, 20. It wasn't until 23 that I learned all the properties of money. Like that is very recent content for me. When did that come in for you?
Yeah, so I had a good foundation from like a monetary perspective, and um like a hard money monetary policy is really where I my interest was initially peaked on Bitcoin, and like in those 2017, 2018, 2019 kind of years. My view on it, Bitcoin, was simple, that like it's got a fixed supply. It's digital gold is what I would describe it at that time. Its market cap is way less than physical gold. So this is an undervalued asset that I'm going to buy. And there's probably a lot of cool tech stuff that will come from it too, but I'm not going to really look into it. It wasn't until getting involved on Twitter, and specifically Twitter Spaces, where I just listened to people talk about these sorts of things. That's when I spun up a node in 2021, an Umbrel node on a Raspberry Pi. I got my cold storage truly set up. I didn't keep my Bitcoin on an exchange back in those years. I had what was called a paper wallet. So like I literally had it printed on a piece of paper in like the 2018, 2019 era, which I printed off at my work and made a copy with it with the corporate scan copy machine, which stores digital images of everything that it copies. So I was like totally vulnerable. And then I stored my wallet in my musty old basement. I have an old house that was built in 1910, and stored it in like a folder in my musty, like mold could have grown on it, or it could have, we've had water in that very room since I've stored Bitcoin on paper in that room. I mean, I was just kind of exposed. But when I came to Twitter and Twitter Spaces and listened to a lot of these folks that are more tech oriented, that's when I got the hardware wallet set up, and I got I don't know if it's titanium or steel plate backups. I stamped those out. I got those stored somewhere in the world for my, my redundancy plan. And I've just been learning ever since, and I got a long ways to go. I'll tell you what, Craig, but that's been my journey.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. I think every Bitcoiner I've ever come across, even the ones so far ahead of me and so far advanced, are very humbled by what they don't know about Bitcoin, because it seems like the more you study it, the more you realize there is to know, the more potential you see. And I've been told by people far down the rabbit hole that it just keeps going, and you never look back at what you just learned thinking I'm here, I've arrived at all there is to know. It just keeps going. So
For sure.
for those of you feeling intimidated by Bitcoin and what you don't know, welcome to the team. We are all feeling very intimidated about our lack of understanding. Still a
For
beautiful
sure.
thing though. So what do you now that you've kind of got your pause on how you generate income, what's attracting you now? What do you think is grabbing your attention? What would you like to do with your time from now on?
Well, with regard to Bitcoin specifically, you'd sent me that question, and I think the best way to describe it is, I'm really interested in the social layer of Bitcoin.
Me
And
too.
there's a couple of reasons why. Like, I ultimately think Bitcoin is defined by social consensus, as many of us describe. I mean, even the value on Bitcoin is just, a shared consensus throughout the world that this thing has value, right? So it's governed very much by um, social constructs. And then, why I've been on Twitter is because of the social layer of Bitcoin, because of the community that is being built up around it, or the type of people that it attracts from an individual level. I came here because I just wanted to talk to people who saw the world similarly to me, right? Like, I didn't have anyone to talk Bitcoin with in my in real life world, um, let alone talk to them even about conservative politics, which I would consider myself a conservative. I didn't have any of the even people to do that. I live in an urban city, right? All of my friends look at me like I'm cross-eyed still to this day for some of my life views. So I came to Twitter because of the social aspect of it, right? And it's what's been keeping me around. And I think it ties into even making memes, right? Like, that's maybe why I got interested in making memes, because it's something that gives me something to do. It's a challenge. And I attempt to do a reflection of what's going on in the space, what's going on in Bitcoin Twitter, right? So that's there's like an endless amount to do from a social layer perspective, and it's always changing. Spaces have changed so much in the last 3 years. It's unbelievable. People have come and gone. There's been groups that have popped up. I've been part of different groups, right? So, like, it's just fascinating to me. And I don't know. I guess it just kind of excites me to see it and to be a part of it. And I'm grateful to be a part of it for sure.
Yeah, and when I came into Spaces not too long ago, I guess it's been about 7 or 8 months. I found that there was, I don't want to say more aggressive content. I don't know if it was maybe prepared for the mainstream audience. And so that's why I thought that maybe we could do something a little more civil discourse, conflicting ideas, just being able to live on the same stage and people could really think about it without so much turmoil and aggression on stage. Um, and I know, what was it like, or is it still like that at night? I really don't participate in a lot of the other shows because, our shows run 16 hours a week. So that's big enough time commitment for me. But what's a lot of the other spaces or the early spaces like, and how has it changed? You said, it has evolved or changed. What was it? What is it? Where would you like to see it go, kind of thing?
Yeah, you're right with the conflict, and I was very much a part of that, right? Because when I came onto Spaces, I quickly found Triple Elite Memes, which was a group that I was a part of from 2021 till the end of 2023. And if I describe like how that formed, I think it was just like a collection of plebs that like it was like the misfits and the bandits and people who were kind of there that were to challenge certain narratives and even people, and it became kind of a meme group after a while, and that's how I got involved in memes. And that was in like 2021. In 20, for the next couple of years, being a member of TEM, we did challenge, I would say, to frame it that way, we challenged a lot of different people. And I think I committed heavily to that sort of thing. Conflict, right? Engaging in conflict. And ultimately what happened from my personal journey participating in that was, I think there is a value to having people out there that are going to bring up the tough discussions, or call out maybe bad behavior. But from my journey, my perspective, um, it it meant that I was engaging in too much negative energy, is what it was.
Right.
And I got very wrapped up in that for, like I said, 2 years. And it grew to a point where I couldn't take it anymore, and I was emotionally broken from it. To be honest, in my even my marriage was in shambles from it. Like it was affecting me personally. It was costing me the relationships that I came to Bitcoin Twitter to build, and I had to take a step back. I had to take a step back and say, this isn't for me anymore, because it is negative energy. Focusing on conflict too much can be very bad, right? And so, like I said, at the beginning of the year, I saw it as an opportunity to try to reset myself. And I think you're right that, like, um, with you saying, you saw an opportunity or a need for a show to kind of get back to civil discussion or offer civil discussion in spaces, is really the same sentiment that I was saying earlier, where like I just wanted to get back to the basics, get
Mhm.
grounded in Bitcoin again. And you know what? Bitcoin's for anyone. It's for everyone. It's an open network, right? And if I were to speak honestly and personally, me being a memer that was perhaps calling out people for their bad behavior was really it was a false sense of moral superiority that I didn't
Mhm.
have. I'm not even morally superior. Like, I am very flawed. I'm a very flawed individual. So there was a hypocrisy even in that I had to get honest with and get past. And I'm glad that I did. I'm just like extremely grateful that I did, and I've owed a lot of people an apology too for doing that sort of stuff and engaging in that conflict that you were talking about earlier. And I've tried to make apologies when and where I can, but yeah, I'm kind of like not interested in any of that stuff anymore. That's why I was interested in joining the Daily Bitcoin Show, because it's like, man, let's just get back to Bitcoin. Let's just get back to
Right.
Bitcoin.
Yeah, and I think Bitcoin is a strong foundation to build on. And, it certainly could be a foundation to say I'm morally superior and to attack from. But I think man's at his best when he's creating and building, not when he's destroying and tearing things apart. And sometimes we think that that's maybe a way for us to express ourselves, but I think long term it kind of finds its way into your heart, kind of corrupts you to a point to where you're just not happy anymore. I've had a similar experience, and I find that, you know what, I'm not going to pour any more energy into destruction. I think Bitcoin is a foundation to build, not a foundation to destroy. And I've seen a lot of beautiful things built on Bitcoin, and I think I'd love to see more of the Bitcoiners get busy building wonderful things, creating, expressing themselves in a creative way. That's when I think humanity shines. So I'm glad to see you using all your creative energies, because I think you're going to do some great stuff, and I can't wait to see it and hopefully be a part of it. Um,
Well, yeah, I appreciate that. And you hit on something important about, yeah, like, um, I had to come to understand for myself that once arrived to Bitcoin, it didn't mean that I had arrived as a Bitcoiner. It didn't mean that I had like arrived to some sort of holy ground or a place of truism, even, right? Like I still live in the world that I live in, and I'm still a flawed individual. And Bitcoin can and will change me, but like you were saying, that isn't an excuse for me to go on judging people, right? Like, in fact, it's quite the opposite. I am heavily involved in an in real life community, a recovery community, where we have open doors to anyone and everyone who's at the bottom of their bottom, right? They're getting out of prison, they're getting, their wives are leaving them, they have just got fired for, padding the expense account. These are flawed people, and I'm one of them. And we open the doors for them and we say, hey, come on in. And we do that knowing that we're no better than them. And we've done all that sort of thing too. So I kind of needed to take that perspective with Bitcoin and how I view the world at large, even the fiat Keynesian clown world that we're in. Um, it's it's more important that I focus on seeing, how I can relate to people, right, than to pointing out how the clown world is so shitty, and I'm not, because I'm in Bitcoin, right? Like I don't think there's a lot of value in taking that stance. And to your point of building, focusing on building and contributing, right? Like what am I contributing? Is it positive or negative? And I'm trying to replace the negative with the positive, is the best way to put it.
yeah, well, look, that's a journey that we're all on. We are all flawed and broken, and we're all glorious creators at the same time. We all have to live with that fact. I think to say you're one or the other, we all struggle with, trying to be more courageous in the face of being scared out of our minds. And but welcome to being human. And
Yeah,
one thing I
right.
love about Bitcoin is it forces a quality audit on your whole life. It's such a high quality thing to have a part of your life that anything of low quality just now has spotlight on it. It's kind of like if you have terrible sleeping habits and terrible eating habits and terrible workout habits. If you make one of those high quality, the other two stand out. And Bitcoin's one of these super high quality things that will definitely shine a light on what's lacking. That's how it's affected me. It's affected so many parts of me, and it's I talk to more and more people like you, and I'm wondering if that's kind of doing it to all of us. It's been my experience.
Yeah, it's
But
a quality audit on my life. That's what I need to remember, not on your life. I'm not quality
right.
auditing your life, right? And that's what I was doing, Craig. Like it is in the recovery community, we say, oh, you got to take your own inventory. Don't take the inventory of others, right? And like it's easy for me to want to take the inventory for others. That is a character flaw of mine, and I'm guilty of it to the nth degree. But in reality, Bitcoin is a quality audit on my life, right? How can I use it to personally grow and then use that growth to perhaps be in a position to be helpful to others in the future, right? I think that's how I can personally approach this going forward, is really just putting myself in a position to be helpful to others after I've already undergone some personal growth as a result. So I really appreciate you putting it that way. That's spot on.
Yeah, I would love to see somehow the content you create express your journey to, for just that, because um, there's so much to be learned when you go through a deep valley like that and come out or on your way out. And I think Bitcoin, like other great things, whether it's good relationship skills, not just good financial skills, good health skills, good eating, good meditation practices, you really need all of it, because any one of those poison pills can come and ruin the entire body, the entire spirit. And so, I'd love to for you to share all that you've learned and have learned walking through that darkness, and share it somehow in your Bitcoin creativity, because that you're speaking more than just to Bitcoin. You're speaking to human needs and the real human journey. And I think you'll have a lot to share now. I hope you do.
Well, I appreciate that. And I think, you know, I think we shouldn't be afraid. I shouldn't say we. I need to remember not to be afraid to admit that I'm wrong or to change my opinion on something. And like it's refreshing and freeing to be able to do that. Once I get over my pride and my ego, which doesn't want me to admit that I need to change perspective or I need to admit I was wrong. If I'm able to get past that pride, which often I'm not, often I'm too prideful to do the right thing, but when I can do it, it is a freeing exercise, right? It's like the first step in recovery is admitting you're powerless. But once you do that, the paradox is you gain power. And so, similarly, it is the 100% true that if I'm being held back by these guiding principles in my life that are there in a negative way, and I'm continuing to hold on to these guiding principles, once I'm able to let go of them, there's a freedom that comes with it, and then the opportunity that comes with it, and then the simplicity that comes with it. I mean, just like everything gets far more simple for whatever reason, and it's refreshing. And I hope I can continue to um, keep that mentality as much as possible. And I appreciate others in the space that openly admit when they were wrong, even on price calls. It's like you got people in the space that make tweets about price action or macro. Dr. Jeff is one of my favorite guys that engage in that sort of stuff. And the reason why I like him so much is he always freely, openly, and almost excitedly admits when his calls were wrong. And I'm like, that's the right shit right there. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Like, no shame in that game, right? Like, we all are just trying our best. And, like, I got to do a better job at just fessing up when I screw up or I'm wrong on something. So,
Yeah, we used to get excited in my company. We would celebrate our losses, and we would almost hold them up. Our face plants were like our bragging rights, and they're so
yeah.
common, and we hide them. But all of us know that we're I think in a deep seated way, we know we are wrong on everything all the time. It's just a matter of how wrong. And to sit there and deny that is really just a good way to stay wrong more often. I remember this quote. I can't remember where it came from, but it was the beginning of wisdom is I don't know. And so many people lock
100%.
themselves in a cage of I know. And I'm like, really? Yeah, just let us know when how that's working out for you, because the rest of us have discovered that there's a certain amount of fear and being lost. That's part of the creative process. If you're going to create something beautiful, you really have to understand that it's a journey and it's a learning journey, and there's so much that you don't know. And some of the smartest men I've ever studied died humbled by what they didn't know. So I think we're no different. And it's good to hear you talk about apology and not knowing. And that's what people can relate to. And as a creator, I think people are going to be attracted to you in that way because you're not pretending. And that's what most people that know everything do. They're just pretending. Behind that mask, there's a lot of fear.
Oh yeah,
So
yeah, yep. And I've worn the mask, Craig. I wear the mask too much sometimes, and I know. Yep, you're right. It's fear based, and the mantra that I've always appreciated is strong opinions loosely held. And there's like a duality there where like I'm not afraid to take a stand or stance on an issue or put my flag somewhere and give an opinion, but I got to be loosely held to that opinion at the end of the day and recognize that if something new comes across my line of sight or I gain more information, and if I'm honest enough with myself, then I can let go and say, oh, yeah, that thing I was really passionate about, I might have been a little off on. And you know what? I'm going to readjust this just a little bit. So, strong opinions loosely held is something that rings through my mind every once in a while as how I'm supposed to be doing sort of these sorts of things, particularly online. So,
fantastic. Well, what message do you have, or what rant do you have for the Bitcoin Daily, for the people listening? What can you offer us? And I'd love to do this interview again, just to kind of check in on your journey here and there. But do you have a message for people coming into Bitcoin, or maybe even struggling in recovery?
um, well, I don't even know if I'm the one to be given the message. And if there's anything, join the conversation because it's fun. And come on, I'm a spaces guy, and come on stage, whatever space it might be, because it really changes. Adds a level of depth to the experience of Bitcoin itself to be able to get on stage and actually have that conversation. And when I first joined stages, man, I was so bad. I'm still bad at talking, but so bad at it. And I have said more stupid things. I have slurred. I have, gone off on tangents. I have been put in my place and all that. Like, that's all part of it, right? Like no one starts getting involved in being good at it. It's just something that I would, if have any advice, is to encourage more people to um just have the conversation, I suppose. And then the other thing is quick little tidbit about it, or like hint, is that the morning spaces are usually more Bitcoin focused, and then as you go throughout the day, it's more, if I put it plainly, it's community based. It could also be described as a little bit more degenerate as you get into the night, but there's a value for those sorts of spaces too. That's where a lot of the fun is had. And it's just a good time. It's the greatest show on earth, in my opinion. Bitcoin itself and the social layer that is being built on online as a result. And yeah, it's fun. It's fun.
Well, Mars, look, I appreciate your contribution. I appreciate the courage that you have. Definitely keeping it real. I love how you've just, opened up your heart and sharing with us. And I can't wait to see what you create, man. I'm excited to have you part of the team. And feel free to come on anytime. I'd love to do this again. And yeah, let's keep the conversation going. Appreciate you, man. All right, so we'll go ahead and wrap it up. This was our first interview ever. We've got like 30 lined up. I'm trying to knock through all of them before the Nashville convention. I think, Mars, are you going to the Nashville convention?
I should be there. Yeah.
Okay. I'll be there as well, along with almost everyone on the Bitcoin Daily team. So please come say hey to us. We'll be walking around, and can't wait to meet y'all. But any last words for before we sign off, Mars?
No. See you around Bitcoin Twitter. And
Yeah.
blessings to your family and everyone's families. And Craig, thank you for having me on and having the conversation. And man, you are doing a great job putting out a very well thought out spaces every day. And it feels as though, since I've been participating in it, that it's done with intention and a bit of purpose. And it shows. So thank you. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, I couldn't do it without the team, man. It's really all on them. I might have kicked everybody off the cliff, but then they figured not, how not to make this look like a train wreck. So thanks for your contribution, and the hosts are just amazing. So I appreciate you guys. It's definitely a team effort. But
Cool.
we signing off. This is Craig LeBlanc, founder of the Bitcoin Daily, and marsmeatbars, one of our great contributors and speakers. Please join us 8 to 10 a.m. every morning Eastern on SpaceX's. Y'all have a great day, and let's go stack some sats. Thank you, Mars.
See ya.